Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of Army Finance 101 with your host that loves all things business, Yummy. Today we're going to stray away from the topic of finance and dive into marketing because 1, I love all facets of business and enjoy talking about them all. 2, believe it or not, all aspects of business are tied together, and marketing is in fact still tied to finance. And 3, a lot of chatter and confusion has been going on lately about BTS and their new brand ambassadorships. So I figured I'd kill 3 birds with 1 stone and just make a video for you all on this. In this video, I'm going to go over the basics of what a brand ambassador is, explain what this means to BTS, then explain what it means to Army, and then answer all of your questions. So let's get started. All right, so first question that I think we need to talk about is, what is a brand? So many people throw this term around, and sometimes it just helps to stop and think about what it actually means. So the short answer is that a brand is a name, a term, a design, a symbol, or any other identifying feature that makes one seller's goods or services distinct from others. And the question then becomes, well, why is a brand important? A brand is important because it distinguishes the seller and makes them easier to recognize among others. Because people will almost always buy a brand that they know over a brand that they don't. Think about it. In a world of so many choices that we live in today, we are more often than not going to gravitate towards the choices that seem recognizable, familiar, and safe. This is why companies fixate on their brand so much. They want you to be able to identify them instantly when you're shopping, because if you do, you are so much more likely to pick them over another brand that you don't know. Well, the question after that then becomes, well, what is a brand ambassador? The short answer, again, is that it is a person employed by a company or any organization to represent a brand in a positive light, and by doing so, increase brand awareness and sales. To give you the long answer, let's go through a hypothetical example. So, when does a company need a brand ambassador? Typically, it's going to be in 3 scenarios. The first of which is that the company wants to increase their sales and just make more money. Simple enough, right? The second scenario where a company might want a brand ambassador is one in which they've decided they want to increase their brand awareness. So maybe you are a company that, I don't know, let's use website builders, for example. So websites are companies like Squarespace or WordPress, right? They build websites and or they let you build them. So what if they maybe they have a market research department who looks into who they're advertising, and they realize that, like, oh, we're directing all of our marketing efforts to, like, I don't know, commercials and print ads. And we've realized that like only 15% of people who are building websites even know that we exist. And if they did know that we exist, maybe they'd be more likely to use us. So we need to find someone who can be our ambassador and tell people about us. Hey, you know who might be a good person to do that, might be a good fit? YouTubers, right? Because YouTubers are building their own websites, and then the people who are watching them are using the internet. So there is a high chance that you might come across a YouTuber advertising for Squarespace, and they are a type of brand ambassador themselves. But so you're just taking an existing market you have, and you just want more people to know that you exist and you are an option for them. And then the third scenario where a company would want to need a brand ambassador is one in which they want to reach a new market, which means, in other words, that they want to advertise their brand or their products to a new group of people that they haven't been selling to before. And on the right, you can see that there are 4 main ways that companies typically divide people into groups or segment people into markets. This is called market segmentation. So the first way that you can segment people is based on their demographics, their age, their gender, their education, their marital status, their race, their religion, etc. The second way is psychographic segmentation, which is based on values, beliefs, interests, personality, lifestyle, stuff like that. The third way is you can segment based on behavior, which could be like purchasing or spending habits, brand interactions, things like that. And then you can segment based on geographics, which is obviously like your neighborhood, your zip code, your city, your region, your country, regions that speak a certain language, stuff like that, that would fit into geographics. So how a company determines what new market it wants to reach is a complicated internal process that requires a lot of market research. And market research is the study of how people behave, live their life, spend money, etc., in a specific segment of a market. So most companies, especially big ones, have entire departments that focus on market research, on researching the market, finding new market segments that their company should pursue, or figuring out how to improve their brand awareness in their existing market and how to improve their product so that the people they target in their existing market can be more satisfied and want to buy their stuff. So all of this is really complex and requires extensive knowledge of who the people are in your market and what they want and what they're looking for. And companies spend millions of dollars trying to understand what people want and how to make them happy, because this information isn't just readily available, right? Like you can know what you want personally, but you can't speak on behalf of millions of people. Nobody can. Nobody just knows that information. That's why companies need to research it and do studies and surveys and all that stuff. And by the way, even once you figure out that, oh, I've decided like I make a certain product and I want to target this new market that would be interested in the product I make, you still have to figure out how you're going to get there. And especially if you're trying to reach a group of people who have limited exposure to your brand and product and maybe have no desire to buy your product, this is where a brand ambassador comes in, especially if it's someone who is already loved by the people that you're trying to target. That brand ambassador can be your bridge to reaching those people faster and motivating them to look into and buying your brand. So that also means that you have to be very careful and research the brand ambassador you want as well. Let me give you an example of like what market research and what all this looks like. So I know right now I'm trying to give you an example about external companies that use BTS as ambassadors, but let me just give you an example of like what a market research survey would look like using Hive as our example, because I think that'll hit closer to home. So like I said before, market segmentation is a way of grouping people by a common characteristic so you can market towards them specifically. For example, when it comes to merch, Hive is always trying to figure out what armies want to buy. Do we like their clothing options? Is there a specific clothing type or design that people buy more of? What sizes do people buy more of? Do we like Tiny Tan products more than BTS song-themed products, like those DNA sweatshirts and fake love candles and all that? Do armies in the US like to buy certain merch products that are different from what armies in India buy, for example? Are there times in the year where we're more willing to spend more money on merch, like perhaps the year-end holiday season? Hive, or rather Weavers, I guess, studies our purchasing habits and tries to break us down based on all this data by demographics, psychographics, like behaviors and geography, and tries to glean information about what we want as consumers. And I'm sure they also analyze our historical purchase data over and over again to try to understand what people generally like and want more of and what we'd rather take a pass on. They've even sent us like surveys in the past about merch and albums, if you guys remember. So if they were to send us another survey, here's what that would look like. By the way, I'm going into detail on all this because it'll become it'll make more sense once I get to your questions. It'll give you a better idea of how much thought goes into picking a brand ambassador from the company side. So if I'm a company like Hive and I'm trying to do market research on my customers, on Army, I could send a survey out that would look like this. That would just say, hey, here's a survey being sent out to everyone. And here's some questions. Have you bought merch in the last 12 months, 6 months, 3 months? How many items do you normally buy from the shop? What type of merch do you buy more? Do you like clothing, stationery, accessories, desk ornaments? How would you rank merch options from most satisfying to least satisfying? Like the thing you're looking for the most to the least? And what do you want to see more of? So they would ask all these questions about what we like and dislike, and then try and break down the survey results along these different market segmentation lines by asking additional questions, such as, okay, let's break it down by demographics. So age, what age group do you fall into? What gender do you identify as? What's your highest level of education? What is your race? What is your religion? I don't think Hive would ask all of these things, maybe age, maybe gender, but for the purposes of like the merch they give us, I don't know if asking about our education, race, or religion would matter as much, but I just included it here to help you identify that as a demographic. Psychographic. So this would be questions like, how would you rank the importance of variety of merch to you, or quality of merch? What is your motivation in buying BTS merch? You know, like, do you believe in supporting BTS? Like, that's like trying to get at your beliefs, kind of. What interests do you have? So, like, do you like arts and crafts, outdoor sports and activities, traveling, language, personality traits? The one I picked here as an example is pride. Do you display your merch? Do you keep the packaging? And lifestyle would be like, are you a student? Are you an office worker? Are you a parent? Are you an academic? Stuff like that, trying to figure out if there's any identifying characteristics that way. Okay, next after that is behaviors. So behaviors would be, like I mentioned before, purchasing habits. Is it important for you to have the newest merch releases first? Or do you wait for a discount deal or something like that? Spending habits. How much money do you typically spend on merch related to an album release? So during comeback times. On how much do you spend on song themed merch, on Tiny Tan merch? So trying to break that down. And then last one is a bit self-explanatory, but geographically. So what country do you live in? What state? What region? What primary language is spoken in your location? There's always ways to make that information useful. But okay, so we get these surveys. Hive sends out these surveys, everybody answers them, you have your general questions about the merch, and then you have all these other additional questions to try and identify you in a certain part of the market. And then I'm going to give you a hypothetical result. Let's say the results come in, they're tabulated, and the survey results say, hey, 75% of people in age group 31 to 40 ranked outdoor activity as a main hobby. But when Hive looked at the historical sales data, they saw that 90% of outdoor activity merch that's been available to purchase to date was bought by age groups much younger than that, like 21 to 30, and then older than that, 41 to 50. So the conclusion that Hive might draw from that is, sounds like we need to increase the level of promotion that we do for outdoor activity merch to people in this age group of 31 to 40, because we know that they like that and that's their hobby. So this is our example for Hive, which I've included in here just to give you an example of what Hive, I think, is doing behind the scenes. This is obviously just like a sample result. I don't really know how they tabulate the results or what exactly they're looking at. But this is what I'm trying to give you an understanding of it this way. So now if we look at this from an external outside company perspective, so in an outside company example, the pool of survey takers could be along much different lines. For example, say you're a company that makes clothing for exercise and outdoor activities like camping or hiking. So you can either do your own survey, or you can find a survey that's been recently done by an external group of people, and or a couple of them, and maybe you look at the first survey, and the first survey says, hey, again, 75% of people in age group 31 to 40 ranked outdoor activity as a main hobby. And only 20% of those same people listed Company X, or your company, as a brand that sells related products. And then you looked at another survey, and it said, hey, 65% of people in that same age group of 31 to 40, they like and support this specific celebrity. So you as that company look at these results and go, okay, so I have this group of people who like doing outdoor activities as a main hobby, but only 20% of them know that we exist as a brand, as an option for them to buy. So it sounds like we need a help from a brand ambassador, preferably the celebrity that a lot of them like, so that we can just like get to them really quickly, so that this celebrity can be like, hey, does everybody know about this brand? If you like to go camping or hiking or like to do exercise outside, this is what you should, check out. That is basically, in broad terms, the idea of a brand ambassador and what they're supposed to be doing. Because, to summarize, a company would want a brand ambassador because that brand ambassador will bring attention to the brand. It'll draw interest from new markets and ultimately increase that company's sales. Simple enough, right? Makes sense. So when you have a brand ambassadorship, essentially you have your company who's saying, we will pay you to say nice things and promote us. And they find a celebrity and they will pay them money. And the celebrity will say, I like your brand, I've researched you, I like what you stand for, and you're paying me an amount of money that I think is appropriate. Cool, I will promote your company. And in the process of promoting the company, that celebrity also gets self-promotion because they're going to be in the news. They're going to be promoting themselves pretty much at the same time that they promote the company. You know how it is. And so the celebrity gets money and self-promotion, and the company gets promotion, which ultimately leads to more sales and more money. So it's a symbiotic relationship that basically looks like that. What does that look like specifically? What does a brand ambassador do? So what a brand ambassador does is they star in the promotional campaign. So they film commercials, they shoot magazine ads, they promote on social media, and they attend promotional events. And the other thing is that the brand ambassador must be knowledgeable about the brand because they're linking the brand with their personal image and they're associating their own positive attributes with the brand. And basically they are influencing others to think about this brand through their personal lifestyle. But of course, there's a risk that this can backfire. Because if you have a celebrity that then does bad things and causes a scandal, then that scandal is then associated with the brand they were endorsing. And I'll talk about this a little more later, but like this happens a lot. We've seen it happen over and over again with like people, let's see, Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong, like after his scandal with doping, was dropped by all of his like sponsors, so he lost money there. Tiger Woods, after all of his like extramarital affairs came out, he lost a lot of sponsorships. Michael Phelps, when there was like evidence of him smoking marijuana, he got dropped from sponsorships. So like there's a risk to the company when they have a celebrity endorsing them. So ultimately, why does having a brand ambassador help a company? I mean, the answer simply is that humans like humans. We are just inherently wired to pay attention to other people more than we will pay attention to things. So having someone we know and like a celebrity, tell us what we should support and buy and tell us that we should buy a certain product or brand, that's going to have a much higher chance of us actually buying it than just a company advertising on its own. That's just how it is. The power of suggestion is extremely high for humans. So now that I've given you an overview of what a brand ambassador is, how they're decided, and what they do, let's talk about what this means for BTS. Okay, so before we get started, I just wanted to also clarify a couple of things in terms of terminology. So a brand ambassadorship is where BTS and HYBE actively support and champion the values, principles, beliefs of a certain brand. And BTS can also endorse specific products from that brand or company. It's not required, it's just they can also do that. And BTS and HYBE are paid for that promotional campaign. A partnership is where BTS and HYBE have entered into an agreement to collaborate with another company on a project, which is usually a BTS themed project. And I'll give you examples of all of this. So usually profits from the project are split between BTS and HYBE and the other company. And then just to clarify, a product endorsement is where BTS and HYBE enter into an agreement to promote a specific product for a company. And in those cases, it just depends on the contract. BTS and HYBE can either be paid just to do the promotional campaign, or they could be paid to split profits. Like they could be splitting profits with the other company over the product sold. Again, it all depends. So in general terms, what do these contracts look like? A brand ambassadorship is going to be denoted in a contract. It's not just something you can do on the fly. You have to write it all out. So the contract terms will be something like, hey, BTS will be paid some amount of money to do the following. They will promote the general brand in a number of commercials and a number of print ads, or then they'll also endorse a specific product in a certain number of commercials or print ads, and maybe they have to be seen using that specific product in a certain location or a number of locations. Again, all those terms are just going to be spelled out in the contract. The contract will also say, hey, this will last for a certain length of time. And maybe there will be an exclusivity term, which says that like, hey, during this contract period, be exclusive with our brand in our industry. So like if you are a phone company and you make phones, hey, during the time that our contract is valid, don't be an ambassador for any other phone company, just us. Same thing with fashion. And then usually one of the perks is that BTS get branded products for free. Again, all of this is up to each contract. And the other thing I did want to say is that the terms are confidential. But what I can say is that it is the size and buying power of ARMY that determines how much these companies are willing to pay BTS for being brand ambassadors. We may say that everything BTS touches turns to gold, but that is in large part due to ARMY's desire to buy almost any product that BTS likes. We're just extra like that. But our extraness is why these brands value BTS so much and are willing to pay them bigger and bigger amounts of money to promote and endorse them, which is great. Because as I explained in my last ARMY Finance 101 video about Big Hit, the more source of income that BTS have outside of their music, the less pressure and burden they feel in their jobs. And then just another example of what a partnership looks like. So again, the terms of a partnership are going to be denoted spelled out in a contract agreement. And usually it'll be something like, HYBE will contribute X amount of dollars towards the manufacture of a product, and the other company will contribute X amount of dollars and be in charge of manufacturing it. The other company will also pay some amount of money to license the BTS logo and likeness and print it on the product. BTS will promote the product, and maybe Hybe and the other company will each pay a certain amount of money for that promotional budget, and they both sides have to agree on what that promotional campaign will look like. Maybe there's a term in there that'll say like, hey, here's the agreed upon amount of this product that we will make and sell, after which point the contract will end. And maybe there will also be a term in there that says that, hey, we have a possibility of extending our contract to make more of the product if Hybe and the other company decide that there is additional demand, and if they make more, they'll still make more money off of it. But again, these terms are confidential. So it's kind of like only over time can we try and figure out what those terms were based on just what we see as it happens. But hopefully this just gives you a general idea of like what these agreements look like. So now this is just my shameless plug because I want to look at all the pretty pictures of BTS being brand ambassadors. There's a reason for this, but right now let's just enjoy these pictures. Okay, so BTS are obviously brand ambassadors for a large number of different brands, different companies. Two of the biggest ones are Samsung and Hyundai, which are both Korean companies. Then they are currently brand ambassadors for Fila, and they used to be for Puma, which again goes back to what I was trying to say that, hey, in the past, they had a contract with Puma to be brand ambassadors that ran out, so now they can go be brand ambassadors for someone else. They are brand ambassadors for Formula E, which in this case, they're not advertising a specific product, right? I'm not going to go out and buy a race car. I don't think anybody really is going to do that. They're just promoting, I guess, the Formula E race car championship and the sustainability, I think, of that organization. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. Okay, so we've got Lottie Duty Free with all those great commercials that they've done. Smart, which is a telecom company, I believe, and that's new. Oh, and then in the past, they've been brand ambassadors for LG, which again is another example of now they're brand ambassadors for Samsung. In the past, they were LG. So they're not conflicting. One contract ended, and now they're allowed to start another. They're brand ambassadors for Tokopedia, which is another technology company, I think, and Koei, which is lifestyle products like air purifiers or water purifiers, air filters. Everything looks space age and awesome. And they are also brand ambassadors for several years in a row for the city of Seoul, as kind of like tourism spokespeople for the I Seoul You campaign. You know, all those lovely commercials that we like to watch. And then, of course, they are now announced as the new brand ambassadors for Louis Vuitton. More on that later. In terms of product endorsements, like specific products that they've endorsed, Chilsung, cider, and then the Cloud beer are two of the products that they've endorsed, which have made me very thirsty and want to go buy it. I don't know where any of this is sold in the US, so if anybody knows where I can find this stuff, let me know. We also know them as product endorsers of Body Friend, that we all always misread as boyfriend. But yeah, so I don't think they're ambassadors for the company as a whole, just specifically this massage chair. And here are just examples of, hey, you can be a product. You can endorse a product as well as be a brand ambassador for a company. So for example, in here, BTS are endorsing the water purifier and the Samsung Galaxy phone. And the other thing that they've done is they've had partnerships with other companies. So one example of that is McDonald's, which is the most recent partnership that they're doing, where we'll have the BTS meal. Another thing that they're doing right now, I think it's right now, is Helinox, which is the camping gear, like the camping equipment, the canvas chair and all of that all has like this design on it. I don't really know too much about it. They've got something going on with Coca-Cola. I think this is in Asia. It's not in the US. I'm very upset by this. And then they had their partnership with Mattel with all the BTS dolls. And of course, when it's BTS's like face and likeness on stuff, they're always going to endorse their own products. That's a given. Other places they've had partnerships with. Starbucks, which I'm very bitter was only in like Korea. Definitely wasn't in the US, and I want this, all of it. Baskin-Robbins, also not in the US. They've had their own flavors of ice cream. Very upset by this. BTS and Limona, the vitamin C stuff. I've actually seen that here in import stores. So there's that, and then they have their Stonehenge necklaces, which I own one of those. That was great. Obviously the Samsung phone, BTS Samsung phone and earbuds. That was a partnership that they had with a brand that they're also brand ambassadors for. So you can be all three. Mediheal, which is the face masks, which work really great, by the way. And then the VT Cosmetics, which was their perfume stuff. So yeah, there's that. And then of course, the partnership that everyone knows and loves, BT21, which is a collab between them and Line. I think this has to be bigger than Samsung and Hyundai, because how many things can you find that are BT21 themed? Obviously, because this was done with Line, they have to share some of the profit. I don't really know who manufactures. Maybe Line is in charge of manufacturing them and BTS own the license to the characters. Unclear. I don't really know. I don't think that information is available. But so this is a massive partnership that we all know very well. All right, so now that I've gone through all of these partnerships and product endorsements and brand ambassadorships that BTS has, what does this mean for ARMY? So every time BTS become brand ambassadors for someone else, ARMY can usually expect a couple of things. We can expect new commercials or print ads with BTS and the brand. We can expect BTS to be promoting the brand by wearing it or using branded products. We can expect instances and like Bangtan Bomb footage of BTS playing with the products of their new brand. And sometimes we might see BTS inspired products. We can also expect the desire to buy the product from whatever brand BTS is promoting, because that is just how ARMY operates. And finally, we can expect comfort in the knowledge that our 7 men are being valued and paid for being the iconic symbols they are. All right, I think I've given you a general overview of everything. Let's get to your questions. All right, first question. What is BTS's approach to choosing what brands to endorse? From what I understand, before BTS and HYBE accept any kind of deal, they spend a long time researching that company and its values, principles, philosophy, etc., to make sure that they are supporting things that they believe in. Based on everything we've seen so far, it seems like BTS really likes to promote innovation and using brands like Hyundai, Samsung, Tokopedia, Smart, LG. Sustainability, Hyundai, Formula E, Koei. Health and beauty care, like Mediheal, Limona, VT Cosmetics. Exercise, Fila, Puma, Helinox. And things that bring people joy, like food, Baskin-Robbins, Starbucks, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Stonehenge. And they are also very proud of where they live, which is reflected in I Soul You and also them being massive ambassadors for Hyundai and Samsung, which are national Korean brands. I would venture to guess that there are people at HYBE whose job it is to do deep dives into these brands that want to do ambassadorships and research everything about them before HYBE and BTS will even talk to them. From what I've read, literally every brand is clamoring to get with BTS since everything they touch turns to gold, and which is because of ARMY and our massive buying power. So BTS have to be very careful about what they endorse and encourage us to spend money on, because if news ever broke out of a scandal or something shady going on with that other company, there is a high chance that ARMY would be upset and feel like we'd been swindled. So it's in everyone's best interest if BTS and HYBE do their homework on these brands 3 times over and make sure they are picking things that they believe in and that these companies are squeaky clean, or as clean as they can be. Next question. What do you think of their philosophy to only accept brand deals as a team? I think accepting deals as a team is inherently necessary. The group is not called Namjoon and Friends. It's called BTS, Bangtansonyundan, like Bulletproof Boy Scouts. It's a collection of people, not one person and everyone else. So the other thing is that both they and ARMY have repeatedly emphasized that all 7 are equally important. I know we have crazy people online who like to think otherwise, but the majority of ARMY supports all of, the majority of people online who are real ARMY support all of them. We wouldn't like it if only one of them was being sponsored and not the rest. And plus, think of it from that brand's perspective. Why would they only ask for 1/7 of the endorsement of their products when they could have 7 times that from all 7 people? It would seem like an absolute waste to not have all of them endorse your product and brand at the same time. And beyond that, considering how these contracts are written with, you have to do a certain number of commercials and ads and interviews and whatever and events, I think it would be really strange for BTS not to do all of that as a group. How many times have we seen Bangtan behinds and bombs where they all play off each other in photo shoots and when they're filming stuff? How many times do they ask each other to stay behind and keep each other company while they're doing that, asking for feedback and praise? Think about how sad they feel when they're one of them is off filming their individual music videos for a solo mixtape or whatever, and how happy they get when everyone else shows up to support them and cheer them on. Let's be honest, for better or worse, those 7 men are codependent and they need each other. So they can only do these things as a group. And we love them for that. What is the difference between BTS being brand ambassadors and BTS supporting businesses independently? Simple. Brand ambassadors, there is a contract delineating that relationship, what BTS have to do, how they're going to be paid, etc. When BTS support businesses independently, there is no contract. There is no agreement. BTS doesn't even have to have contact with that business beforehand. They can just say something to ARMY and we'll take it from there. That's why every time BTS have inadvertently supported something and ARMY bought it out, that usually that business ends up coming online to express how grateful they are to BTS, and then they send gifts to BTS. I'm thinking of how Jungkook was drinking that wine on the V Live in Busan, and then everybody sold it out from that company. But yeah, that's really the main difference. One is formal and BTS are getting paid. The other one is informal and BTS don't get paid. They're just choosing to support something out of the goodness of their hearts. Does the company make the decision of which brand deals BTS do? I think HYBE and BTS work together on this. Because as I said before, extensive research has to be done into the brand in question to make sure it aligns in values, principles, philosophy, etc. with HYBE and BTS, and any potential scandals are identified, reviewed, and evaluated on whether it's enough to cancel any potential agreement with the brand. Ultimately, though, these brand ambassadorships, it's BTS's reputation and face on the line, so I would think that BTS have final say. And I'm sure they take a lot of time to decide on what brands they want to endorse and be ambassadors for. And I bet you they also evaluate how much work they would have to do as ambassadors in contrast to their already busy schedule. Because like I said, you usually have to film commercials, ads, do interviews, events, etc. So if there's a brand that wants them, has laid out this massive promo campaign that they want BTS to do, even if it's a brand that BTS support, maybe they look at that promo campaign and they're like, if this company is not willing to reduce this, like, we're walking. Like, this is not something we want to talk about. This isn't feasible. But yeah, so that's that question. Have celebrities or brands been negatively impacted by associating with certain companies like McDonald's? If you are a celebrity and the company you're endorsing does something bad, you can just publicly denounce them and cancel your endorsement to distance yourself from the company. Like, the fallout for if the brand does something and the celebrity, like, it's not really going to affect the celebrity. But if the celebrity does something bad, it usually ends up being the company that cancels the endorsement. And like I mentioned, like, this happens a lot in sports endorsements. And then there's also a lot of celebrity endorsement fails. Just Google them, like, celebrity endorsement fail. There's like a lot of times where celebrities get picked to be the face, the ambassador of a certain brand, and then they do something really dumb. They say something really dumb in an interview or on social media, and then that ambassadorship gets canceled really quickly. In terms of celebrities being negatively impacted from being associated with McDonald's, from what I can see, it doesn't really happen. Here's some people you might know who endorse McDonald's in one way or another. Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Kobe Bryant, Tony Hawk, Destiny's Child, Usain Bolt, Chrissy Teigen, Travis Scott. I think they're all doing just fine, don't you? In terms of the McDonald's signature meal, this is a recent promotional tool that McDonald's have started. And prior to BTS, they've only done it with 2 celebrities, I believe, both of whom are musical artists as well. So one of them is Travis Scott, an American rapper, as I mentioned, and another one is J Balvin, who is a Colombian singer. Apparently, from what I've read, these meals are intended to help McDonald's reach a market segment that they've been struggling with, which is Gen Z, like 10 to 24-year-olds. Apparently, young people, Gen Z doesn't like to eat at fast foods anymore. Good for them. Maybe you shouldn't start now. But yeah, so those other 2 artists that did this meal with McDonald's, they're doing just fine. Also, like, there's other fast food chains that are doing this. Chipotle did this celebrity menu thing with Miley Cyrus, and Dunkin' Donuts did it with some TikTok star named Charlie D'Amelio. I don't know who this is. I don't use TikTok. But yeah, so like, everyone is kind of doing this. It's not weird for McDonald's to be doing this with BTS. What are the long-term payoffs of these sponsorships and partnerships? Long-term payoffs for the company or the brand. More sales, a larger market of people interested in your product or brand. You might reach a new market, and more awareness of who you are and what your brand is. Because remember, familiarity is key for brands. Long-term payoffs for BTS. More money, larger market of people aware of and familiar with BTS, and BTS becoming even more of a household name than they are now. Because little by little, stuff like this helps erode the outsider label that BTS get everywhere they go, until all that's left is them being an insider, just being someone that everyone knows. What is a Louis Vuitton house ambassador? Honestly, it's a brand ambassador. There is no legal or official term for what a brand ambassador is, so it's up to the brands themselves to pick the words they want to use. Maybe a house ambassador seemed more high fashion and special than just calling them a regular brand ambassador. Especially since Louis Vuitton calls themselves a house of fashion. Does house ambassador sound fancier to you? Must be if you're asking me about it. It's just funny because I read in the official statement that BTS gave last week about this ambassadorship, they said, hey, becoming global brand ambassadors for Louis Vuitton is an exciting moment for us. So even BTS themselves don't know what they're called. It's all a marketing gimmick. It's just designed to create hype and attention and intrigue and make you want to know more. Is it working? Again, you asked me this question, so I think it is working. But yeah, it just means like ambassador, brand ambassador. And yeah, to the question of like, what is the difference between a house ambassador, a global brand ambassador, and a brand ambassador? There is none, unless the brand wants there to be. Like for example, maybe you have a company that wants different brand ambassadors based on what country or region in the world they're marketing towards. So maybe they want a specific brand ambassador for South Asia, another one for Europe, another one for the US. So they just pick celebrities accordingly. Or the other side of that is maybe they just want to use the global star power of one celebrity or one group of celebrities, like BTS, because BTS are worldwide superstars. So it's either you can have one for each market, or maybe you just have one overall one. And to be honest, you'd have to weigh the like pros and cons and like cost benefits of doing it both ways, because maybe it's cheaper to just pay BTS to do stuff globally than to pay a bunch of different ambassadors. But who knows? Maybe BTS is so expensive that in some cases it's easier for other companies to just have a bunch of different ambassadors everywhere, paying each their own paycheck. But I don't know. It's up to the brand to make that determination. Is there any significance to the contrast of brands, McDonald's versus Louis Vuitton? Something I've always thought about when it comes to BTS and HYBE is how often they strive to make things accessible for everyone, regardless of income level. A lot of the time, they've pursued brand ambassadorships that already target towards the average person, like Fila and Puma shoes, ice cream from Baskin-Robbins, Hyundai cars, Samsung phones, McDonald's. Obviously, Louis Vuitton is the outlier here in that they're a high-end fashion label. However, the more I think about it, the more it seems to me that Louis Vuitton is trying to target a new market segment. And that's why they've snatched up BTS as brand ambassadors. Even in the official statement they gave last week, they said, quote, "This wonderful partnership adds a modern chapter to the house, merging luxury and contemporary culture." I suspect they might be working on clothing lines targeted at people in our lower priced segment. So instead of clothes that cost like $1,000 an item, it'll be more like $100 to $300. I don't know. That's my theory. Next question. Does this mean we'll be seeing them wearing only Louis Vuitton going forward? Again, every contract is different and the terms of their contract is confidential. So we'll just have to find out in real time what those terms are. But I suspect that while BTS will wear more Louis Vuitton going forward, it won't be exclusively them. I've read articles in the past saying that BTS have refused to become brand ambassadors before because they wanted to pick what they wore. And we know that fashion is very important to them. And we also know that they love to support their Korean fashion designers. So yeah, I expect to see them wearing more Louis Vuitton, but I don't think it'll be exclusive. Or at least if it is exclusive, it'll be for like a short period of time, or maybe for only like big events, like award shows or something, like stuff like that. I don't know. We'll have to see. Why partner now when they've been wearing what they want for years? Great question. Maybe because BTS likes money. Maybe Louis Vuitton came to them with a plan to innovate their clothing and create a line that would be way more accessible to the average person. Because after a whole year of a pandemic, Louis Vuitton realized their business model that only targets rich people wasn't going to be sustainable. Yeah, I don't know. I do think that these kinds of endorsements are good at making BTS seem more familiar in the West. Because all of these high fashion labels tend to be European and therefore comfortable for people in the West. So if the labels are endorsing BTS, then people in the West will see BTS as, again, less of an outsider and more like them. You can point out the racism and xenophobia in these things, but that doesn't make it go away overnight. So even if I wish that people in the West were less closed-minded, a lot of them aren't. And if being ambassadors for something like this makes BTS happy and gets them paid, and helps promote them in the West, then I'm on board. Yeah. Again, I don't know though. Maybe BTS just like the money they were willing to pay them. But I bet you it's a little more deep than that. BTS don't do things just for the money. How do you think this will change the image of a brand like Louis Vuitton, if at all? Like I mentioned before, I think Louis Vuitton is aiming for a new market segment or segments, probably younger people, people with less income than what they normally target, people who are still conscious of fashion, which would be us if we follow BTS and enjoy everything they wear, and maybe people who believe in innovation and a more sustainable world. Those are my speculations. If you think back to what I explained to you before about the market research that companies spend a shit ton of money doing, maybe Louis Vuitton just realized that, like, among groups of people who have not been tapped, who might be interested in high-end fashion, I would say Army is a great candidate for that, because we clearly are aware of high-end fashion labels, especially we're just aware of fashion, especially in relation to BTS, but also most of us can't afford to pay several $1,000s for one item of clothing, unlike BTS. So if there was something catered towards us that was cheaper, but still fancy and still branded, I would be inclined to consider that. I don't know about you. I would, especially if it was BTS themed. Okay, next. Is there any difference in BTS's Louis Vuitton contract compared to other ambassadors? I don't fucking know. Again, these contracts are confidential, so it's very hard to predict anything unless you're an insider. And I don't know if you guys know this, but sadly, I am not a high fashion industry insider. Alas. God, I wish. We will only be able to guess what was in their contract as time goes on, and we either see them exclusively wearing Louis Vuitton or not. If we see them having to make more promotional appearances in places, if they have to make a bunch of commercials, if Louis Vuitton reveals some new clothing line directed at us, we'll just have to see. How does BTS fit into Louis Vuitton and LVMH's global expansion? So for those who don't know, LVMH, or Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton, is the parent company. It is the French multinational corporation and conglomerate that specializes in luxury goods, headquartered in Paris. And by the way, if you don't know, conglomerate is just a term that means that LVMH is a combination of a bunch of different businesses under one group. So it's kind of like a parent and a bunch of subsidiaries, but it's usually like where all the subsidiaries have their own CEO and are like their own company, and they don't all wait for leadership from the head company. They're all doing their own thing. It's usually like multinational. It's a huge company. So yeah, LVMH is divided into 6 branches or houses, which is very French, because in French it's maison. And anyway, those 6 branches are fashion, wines and spirits, perfumes and cosmetics, watches and jewelry, some retailing like Sephora, and other. It's literally called other. And so what rolls up into them is all of these different branches, and under the fashion one is apparently like 75 different prestigious brands. Brands like Christian Dior, Givenchy, Marc Jacobs, Fendi, Fenty, Bulgari, Tiffany, and Louis Vuitton. From what I understand, BTS have been selected as brand ambassadors for Louis Vuitton, which means like Louis Vuitton rolls up into LVMH, so they're helping LVMH grow by being brand ambassadors and making Louis Vuitton grow. How much Louis Vuitton is expecting BTS to increase their brand awareness, sales, market, whatever, is only something they know. So unfortunately, I can't predict for you what their business strategy in this is, because it's top secret information. Business strategy is the secret sauce. It is the stuff that other less successful companies would love to know so that they could copy and become successful themselves. So yeah, we'll just have to kind of figure it out as time goes on, what exactly is going on here. Does BTS have a deal with Louis Vuitton, the brand, or the overall company? The deal has to be with the brand, as far as I'm aware, which would make sense considering the entire conglomerate is combining businesses in fashion, wine, cosmetics, jewelry, perfumes. Like, that's a ton of stuff for BTS to be representing. It's much easier just to focus on Louis Vuitton, the brand, and the clothes that Louis Vuitton makes. Much easier for everyone involved. I don't think you even could have a brand ambassador for LVMH because it wouldn't make any sense. Every time you would have a brand ambassador promoting them, people would be like, well, what are you endorsing? Are you endorsing wine? Are you endorsing cosmetics? I'm sure the target markets for people who buy wine is different from people who are into fashion or cosmetics. Like, I'm sure there's some overlap, but it would just be very confusing. So it has to be with Louis Vuitton, the brand. How long do these partnerships usually last? Depends on the contract. Historically, from what we've seen with BTS, they've done these ambassadorships for at least a year, sometimes several. So maybe 2 to 3 years, with an option to extend their contract if they're very successful. I don't know. Maybe they'll tell us later. They usually don't tell us later. When one of their contract ends, it kind of just quietly peters out and no one talks about it. Since Louis Vuitton called BTS creative partners, what possible projects could this entail? Hopefully clothing lines directed at us that we can afford to buy. That's my dream. Hopefully they'll tell us more as time goes on. Do we expect sales to increase for Louis Vuitton because of this ambassadorship? Yes. That's the whole point. If sales were to drop, there have been instances where brands have picked the incorrect person to represent them because, I don't know, they did a shitty job understanding who their celebrity was. And like people got angry at the brand or like they were offended at something the celebrity said. This is included in the celebrity endorsement fail stuff that you can Google. And like people like boycotted the product because they were pissed at the celebrity. But yeah, so yeah, we do expect sales to increase. Since Louis Vuitton is a luxury good, does this mean Louis Vuitton sees the buying power of ARMY as high? Hell yes! I would venture to say that both Louis Vuitton and Hybe have done research on ARMY independently of one another and realized that 1, our buying power is high. 2, a large part of this fandom is older and female, meaning that we have a lot more disposable income than someone in their teens and without a job. And 3, we are fashion conscious and in an ideal world would love to dress like BTS dresses and look expensive as fuck, but the price point can't be as expensive. So I think that is the market, us. Like, that's why they're trying to tap into ARMY, and that's why they're using BTS as their brand ambassador to basically hold the door open for them and let them reach us. All right, well, that is all the questions that you guys sent in to me. So I hope this has been interesting. This is definitely shorter than the last video I made. It's kind of a little disconcerting for me to be done already. I'm not gonna lie. I think this kind of stuff is fun to watch because all we have to do is sit back and wait for them to start marketing towards us and then figure out if the stuff that they're offering us is worth the purchase. They're the ones trying to entice us to buy their stuff. So it's on them to make it appealing and it's on us to enjoy it. So I also hope BTS feel fancy and expensive promoting Louis Vuitton. And that they enjoy having their name plastered across McDonald's stores around the world with their signature meal. Yeah, I hope they enjoy all the brand ambassadorships that they do. I really do believe that it keeps the pressure off them to make money and like keep their company growing. And it lets them just enjoy making their music. That makes me happy. But yeah, if you have any other questions, if you have anything else you want to talk about, feel free to leave a comment or reach out on Twitter. Until next time, thanks guys.